She never said Melania's name, but one question from Jasmine Crockett shook the entire White House. It started like any other Capitol Hill hearing, paper shuffling, tired voices, the hum of political theater. But when Representative Jasmine Crockett leaned into her microphone that Thursday morning in room 2141 of the Rayburn House office building, the air changed. The topic was immigration reform again. Republicans stressed law and order. Democrats emphasized family unity. Cameras panned across board interns and stone-faced committee members. Then Crockett adjusted her blazer, locked eyes with the room, and spoke slowly. If we're going to deport undocumented spouses for breaking visa rules, she paused. Do we start with the First Lady? The silence wasn't respectful, it was electric, like someone had flipped a table. Representative Glenn Bradbury, seated 3 chairs over, blinked like he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. On the Republican side, murmurs turned into a low ripple. Someone coughed, maybe a laugh. C-SPAN's captions lagged behind. Phones buzzed. A staffer mouthed to another. Did she just say Melania? Crockett didn't repeat herself. She calmly took a sip of water, eyes down on her notes, and let the moment hang. Committee Chair Paul Gentry cleared his throat like he'd swallowed gravel. Let's keep the discussion respectful, he said, half to Crockett, half to the cameras. But it was too late. The clip was already viral. In the back row, freelance journalist Lex Torres tweeted, Crockett just threw a grenade. Deport your migrant wife? 13 minutes later, the hashtag was trending. Within 2 hours, it was national news. Inside the hearing room, the damage was subtle but real. Gentry tried to move on, calling the next speaker, but even he stumbled. Jasmine Crockett didn't gloat. If anything, she looked tired, but focused. That line had been planned, rehearsed. She knew exactly what it would do. That's going to explode, whispered Representative Molly Kincaid beside her. Crockett didn't turn. Good. Across the aisle, Bradbury scribbled a note and handed it to an aide. Moments later, a Republican staffer slipped out the side door, phone already to his ear. The GOP needed to decide, attack or ignore. Outside, the press was already swarming. Torres live streamed on the Capitol steps. She didn't name names, he said, but we all know who she meant. And look, Melania's visa history has been questioned for years. Nobody talks about it. Until now, inside, the hearing limped along. But something had shifted. Even the driest policy points suddenly carried weight, like everyone knew something unspeakable had been said and no one dared say it again. 10 minutes later, Jasmine Crockett walked out of the room with her team, eyes forward, ignoring the cameras. She looked like someone who had finally said what everyone else was too afraid to dot in the West Wing. Less than an hour later, the storm had hit. Inside the private dining room off the Oval Office, Donald Trump stood behind a chair, white-knuckled, staring at the TV. The screen looped Crockett's viral moment. The caption crawled across again. Do we start with the First Lady? He didn't blink. He didn't sit. At first, he didn't even shout. Hope Daniels, a senior advisor, stepped forward. We're drafting a statement, don't write anything, Trump snapped. She just said my wife should be deported. In front of the world. The room packed. With staff froze. Chief of Staff Vic Moreno, Press Secretary Carla McNair, comes Deputy Rudy Finch, even a legal advisor no one knew by name. All silent. Where the hell was Gentry? Trump growled. He should have shut that down. He tried, sir, McNair said. He called for order. Not order. He should have kicked her out, suspended her. If a Republican said that, nobody dared remind him Crockett hadn't named Melania. That kind of correction could cost someone their job. She said First Lady, Trump barked. Everyone knows what she meant. McNair exchanged a look with Moreno. Don't say it. Trump started pacing. They think I won't respond? They think I'll let that slide? I want the GOP on the phone. Gentry, Hollins, Janovich. I want a coordinated response before the 6:00 news. Daniels reached for her phone. Wait, Trump said, holding up a hand. We don't just respond. We go big. Full court press. Interviews. Op-eds. I want someone saying this was a disgrace. Say she should be censured. Can we even censure her? He asked. Moreno replied cautiously. Technically, yes. Through the House Ethics Committee, then start it. Trump barked. Make her feel it. They come for my wife. We come for their seats. Daniels hesitated. Sir, respectfully, if we go too hard, We risk shining more light on Melania's immigration history. It's trending. What do you mean trending? She turned her phone. The top posts on X, formerly Twitter, read, #Deport your migrant wife Melania visa. Crockett was right on had 500,000 views in 30 minutes. Another was an old Larry King clip of Melania dodging a visa question. Trump's face twisted. Find those people. I want accounts suspended. I want them gone. No one moved. They're dragging my wife through the mud and we're just sitting here. McNair tried to pivot. We can prep Melania for a soft interview. Frame this as a personal attack. No, Trump snapped. She's not doing press. They don't deserve her voice. He slammed his hand on the table. Water glasses jumped. Daniels took a breath. Then we go all in. Allies issue statements. Flood the media. Hit back. Make it personal, Trump said. Not policy. Dignity. She came here legally. Say that, sir, Marino ventured. If we push the legality angle, it could backfire. Say it anyway, Trump growled. I said what I said. Outside the West Wing, the media frenzy was in full swing. Reporters camped out on the North Lawn. The conversation on immigration had twisted sharply in an unexpected direction. By the evening news, every major outlet led with the same clip but told the story differently. Some called Crockett's comment reckless, others courageous. But all of them revisited a question the Trump team had long buried. How exactly did Melania Trump go from Slovenian model to U.S. citizen? CNN and MSNBC ran deep dives, complete with legal analysts and immigration attorneys. One former ICE lawyer put it plainly, I've seen mothers deported for using the wrong social security number to get a cleaning job. If she weren't First Lady, wouldn't Melania have been deported? On Reddit, users shared screenshots from a 2016 Politico report that once got buried. Now, it was everywhere. Talk radio buzzed. Even conservative hosts struggled to defend her without slipping. If she broke the law, one caller asked, why doesn't she face consequences? By PM, independent journalist Clive Renshaw laid it all out on his live stream. Melania says she had the right visa in '96, but we know she did paid modeling work before she had a proper work visa. That's a violation, maybe small but still a violation. Under Trump's own policies, that could have gotten her deported. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. An administration defined by hardline immigration rules was now battling the same scrutiny it had once wielded against others, and the American public. They were already deciding what they believed. We're talking about a double standard, one that millions know all too well. In Phoenix, Arizona, a mother of two filmed a TikTok from her kitchen table. Her husband had been deported and 2 to 6 weeks overstayed on a visa after getting laid off during COVID. I just want to know, she said through tears, why my kids lost their father over a technicality, but Melania gets to stay First Lady like none of it matters. That video hit 10 million views in 24 hours. The next morning, the St. Louis Sentinel ran the headline, Who deserves a second chance? In smaller print, if Melania Trump gets one, why don't we? The White House tried to push back. Press Secretary Carla McNair stood behind the podium, voice tight, calling the allegations baseless and already settled. But when asked what type of visa Melania first used to enter the U.S., she deflected. I won't speak on personal legal matters from 30 years ago, she said. That only added fuel. Because this wasn't just about one woman's visa, it was about the question the administration had always dodged. How do you justify deporting people for mistakes your own family made? And the timing couldn't have been worse. ICE had just launched a new round of raids in California. Images of locked doors, terrified children, and crying parents were already circulating. Meanwhile, Melania stayed silent. No statement, no tweet, no appearance. And the silence only made it louder. On a podcast in Columbus, strategist Celine Ward put it bluntly, this isn't about whether Melania deserves to be deported. Of course she doesn't. But the question is, why does she get grace while others don't? As the country debated fairness, Jasmine Crockett was preparing to speak again. And this time, she wasn't holding back. It started with a 13-second clip. One sentence. But within a day, it had been sliced, captioned, remixed, and launched like wildfire across the internet. Deport your migrant hit #1 on X by midnight, eclipsing celebrity gossip and even international headlines. Influencers reposted it. Immigration activists reshared it. And suddenly, people who had never heard of Jasmine Crockett knew her face, her voice, and the exact tone she used when she asked, Do we start with the First Lady? But it wasn't just activists or journalists anymore. A high school teacher in Burbank posted a tearful reaction during her lunch break. A cashier in Wichita made a TikTok explaining how her uncle got deported for a late form. On YouTube, new channels emerged overnight dissecting Melania Trump's visa story like it was a criminal case file. Conservatives pushed back. Talk show host Wyatt Rucker launched a 10-minute tirade accusing Crockett of attacking a graceful woman who came here legally. But the internet latched onto one sentence. Melania's story is different. She married a successful American, and that makes all the difference. People didn't let that go. So marriage erases the rules? Tell that to my sister. She married a citizen and still got deported. Even late-night comedy got involved. On the Steve Ramirez show, the host opened with, "Break immigration law and marry a billionaire. That's patriotic. Break the law to feed your kids? That's criminal. Makes total sense." Laughter followed, but then a pause. This isn't a joke for everyone. Some people lost everything because of this double standard. That clip got shared thousands of times. What made this moment different wasn't just the politics. It was the personal. A man posted a photo of his mother captioned, "Deported in 2007. Visa error. No record. No second chance. Melania gets a platform. We got silence." Thousands of stories followed. Heartbreak flooded comment sections. Stories of courtrooms, fear, missed birthdays, and weddings. Comparisons to Melania's past resurfaced, especially her alleged modeling work before she had the proper visa. On Instagram, a DACA recipient named Maribel posted a photo of herself holding a stack of paperwork. 3,007 background checks, 4 years waiting, and I still don't know if I get to stay. But sure, let's not question the First Lady. Even journalists began cracking. On CNN, reporter Thomas Wellings shook his head and said, "It's hard to tell struggling families they don't qualify when the First Lady's story has this many holes." Still, calls for restraint came in, from moderates, from celebrities, even a few Democrats. A letter published in the Hartford Register read, "We can question policy without dragging someone who isn't an elected official through the mud." But others pushed back hard. "She's the symbol of the rules they wrote." One reader responded, "If she gets a pass, we need to talk about who doesn't." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett sat quietly in a hotel room in Baltimore, preparing to speak. She scrolled through hundreds of messages, some supportive, some vile. In the adjoining room, her team debated whether doing the interview was brave or reckless. She poked the hornet's nest, her press aide said, and the hornets are billionaires with media reach. But Jasmine wasn't shaken. Somewhere in the chaos, one message had cut through. "My dad was deported in 2019. After 27 years, your words made me feel like someone finally saw us. Thank you." That stayed with her. The hotel smelled like old coffee and cleaner. A makeup artist powdered her face. A stylist straightened her blazer. Her phone buzzed again, this time from a member of the Congressional Black Caucus. "You're not wrong. Just be ready for the firestorm." She already was. Across town, cameras were rolling. Jasmine had chosen Nation Talk Tonight with Latrice Greer, known for hard questions and sharp interviews. As the red light blinked on, Greer didn't waste time. "Congresswoman," she began, "last night, you lit a match. People are calling you courageous or reckless. Let's go there. Did you mean to suggest the First Lady should be deported?" Crockett didn't blink. "What I meant," she said, "is that we can't keep enforcing immigration rules with cruelty and technicality on one group, while pretending those same rules don't apply to the powerful." Greer pressed, "You could have made that point 100 ways. Why this one?" "Because people ignore the truth when it's comfortable," Crockett answered. "But when it hits too close, they call it disrespect." "I wasn't attacking a woman, I was exposing a system." Greer nodded. "You didn't say her name, but you knew who people would think of." "I did," Jasmine replied. And that silence that followed, that was truth landing. Nobody had a defense. They just didn't want the conversation. The interview aired uncut. Within minutes, clips flooded the internet. Her most quoted line came in response to a final question. "Do you regret your words?" Crockett didn't hesitate. "No one gets a free pass just because their husband lives in the White House." By morning, the backlash sharpened. Fox News accused her of demeaning the First Lady. House Republicans drafted a letter calling for her censure. One conservative host labeled her un-American. Crockett tweeted in response, "If speaking truth makes me un-American, what does that make the people?" deporting families over paperwork? That went viral too. Behind closed doors, some Democrats grew uneasy. I agree with her in principle, one senior member reportedly said, but the optics are a nightmare. Another, younger rep fired back. Maybe it's time we stop worrying about optics and start worrying about people. The reaction was split but deafening. In Cleveland, a crowd chanted Jasmine Crockett's name. Protesters held up signs scrawled with the names of loved ones in deportation proceedings. In Jackson, Mississippi, the mood was the opposite. A handful of demonstrators waved American flags and signs that read "Respect the First Lady" in thick red paint. Crockett didn't flinch. She went on one more talk show that week. When asked what her endgame was, she kept it simple. I want fairness. I want the mercy and patience given to the powerful to also be given to the powerless. And I want people to see the system for what it is, rigged for the few. Her words hit hard, but they also kicked the door wide open, and the GOP had no choice but to step through it. The meeting took place behind closed doors on the 5th floor of the Capitol Hill Club, a quiet space Republicans often used for conversations they didn't want documented. No cameras, no press, no phones, just a cold room, a long oak table, and a collection of stiff suits with tight jaws. The head sat House Majority Leader Russell Crane. He didn't speak at first, just scanned the room. Senior strategists, PAC heads, legal advisors, communications brass. This is a mess, Crane finally said, and I want to know how we're going to clean it up. Pete Farnell, a veteran media strategist, cleared his throat. Sir, if I may. Crockett took a swing, but we gave her the bat. We've ignored the Melania question for years. Now it's out, and people aren't buying the double standard. Crane scowled. We don't need to win Twitter. We need to control the damn narrative. Kendra Lamé, deputy chair of Outreach, tapped her pen against a legal pad. The far right wants blood. They want Crockett censured, dragged. But suburban women? They're asking why no one ever explained Melania's immigration story. That's a problem. She turned a spreadsheet toward Crane. 6-point dip in support from suburban women. In 48 hours, Crane leaned back, exhaling sharply. Do we have anything to shut it down? Dominic Rain, legal advisor for the party's ethics committee, finally spoke. No confirmed violations. Melania's lawyers cleaned everything up before the 2016 campaign really took off. But we've never released the documents because we never had to. Until now. Crane narrowed his eyes. And if we do? Rain hesitated. If there's even a small error, it could backfire. Hard. Silence. Then Farnell jumped in. Or we don't release anything. Shift the conversation. Paint Crockett as obsessed. Say it's not about fairness, it's about her personal vendetta. Make it about her tone, not the substance. Lamé gave a small, knowing smile. Classic magician's trick. Watch this hand, not the other. Crane looked at her, skeptical. Does that still work? If we act fast. They started brainstorming phrases for talking points. Attack on American women, disrespecting the office, weaponizing immigration law, politics of personal destruction, hideous flu, surrogates on morning shows, op-eds by conservative columnists, maybe even a staged photo op, Melania reading to children in a library, radiating grace. But not everyone was sold. In the corner, Robert Vance, a junior congressman from Nevada, crossed his arms. What if we just answer the damn question? Crane turned sharply. What question? Whether she violated immigration law. Whether it matters. People aren't mad about Crockett's tone, they're asking if she's right. The room fell still. Crane shook his head. We don't answer traps. We steer around them. Rain added quietly, if we admit to the double standard, it doesn't stop with Melania. It leads to every donor's cousin, every campaign volunteer we've helped quietly. It threatens the whole machine. Crane snapped his fingers. Exactly. This isn't about her, it's about the scaffolding. The meeting ran past midnight. By morning, the GOP had a new script. Crockett, they said, was politicizing immigration, targeting women, undermining dignity. Not one mentioned Melania's visa. They didn't need to. They were betting the outrage would burn itself out, but something unexpected happened. The silence around Melania only got louder. She hadn't tweeted, hadn't spoken, hadn't even glanced at the cameras waiting outside Trump Tower when she quietly returned to Manhattan days after the hearing. Her face frozen in place, unreadable, was captured by every news outlet. Not angry, not defiant, just blank. Inside her Fifth Avenue residence, only longtime aides were allowed in. A single stylist. No press. Some staff claimed she wasn't watching the news. No one believed it. One source said she spent the night after Crockett's remark pacing her living room, arms crossed, jaw clenched. She knows exactly what they're saying, the source added. She just refuses to answer it the way they want. And that silence, intentional or not, became a story of its own. Cable news picked it apart. Some called it strategic and elegant refusal to wade into the mud. Others said it reeked of privilege. On Morning View, political analyst Howard Leeds said bluntly, her silence is no longer neutral. It's a message. Intentional or not, it says, this doesn't touch me. The host added, and isn't that the whole issue? Meanwhile, her defenders claimed it was dignity in the face of cruelty. She's a wife, a mother, not a politician, said former First Lady consultant Rachel Dumont on a podcast. She doesn't know a response to some angry congresswoman, but the argument fell flat, because while Melania said nothing, thousands of immigrants couldn't afford to be silent. At a CNN town hall in El Paso, a man stood up and asked, if I said nothing during my ICE hearing, would I be treated with dignity or thrown on a plane? No one answered. That same week, 2 of Melania's public appearances were canceled, a literacy event in Tampa and a hospital tour in New Hampshire. Officially, it was scheduling conflicts. Insiders knew better. The White House didn't want her near a mic. Some floated a soft interview, a gentle cue, and with a friendly outlet. No questions about visas, just charity and beauty tips. Melania declined. She doesn't want to explain herself. One aide said, she doesn't think she should have to, but the public wanted more. This time, they weren't satisfied with grace. They wanted truth. In a searing op-ed for the Kansas City Ledger, immigration attorney Priya Sethi wrote, it's not the illegality alone that offends people. It's the silence, the privilege to ignore what others must beg to survive. Her words echoed across party lines. Even Republicans began to admit off the record that the silence was doing damage. She should have said something. One GOP aide told Politico, even just I respect the process, anything. This ghost act is making it worse. But Melania didn't budge. And no matter how loud the world got, she refused to let it reach her. Or maybe she was just waiting for it to blow over. Back in Washington, Jasmine Crockett noticed, people are bending over backward to protect this woman from answering a basic question. She said to reporters outside her office, if I had even one visa issue in my past, I'd be dragged through the system until my career evaporated. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't smile. Melania Trump gets to pretend none of this touches her. The silence says more than any of us ever could. But while Melania stayed invisible, the country was beginning to stir. In a small apartment in Stockton, California, Rosa Alvarado sat at her kitchen table, her baby asleep in her arms. The TV was muted, but the headline across the bottom of the screen said everything. Crockett's question still echoing, who gets grace, and who gets deported? Melania faces questions amid immigration debate, and America starts asking its own. Rosa Alvarado wasn't an activist. She wasn't even political. She worked 12-hour shifts at a food processing plant, 6 days a week. She came home, fed her kids, and stayed quiet. Until one day, scrolling through a friend's Facebook page, she saw Jasmine Crockett's words on replay. She whispered one word, finally. Because 5 years earlier, Rosa's husband Daniel had been deported. No criminal record, no warning, just a clerical error, an expired document, an outdated address on a form, and ICE had shown up before sunrise. The image of Melania Trump arriving at fashion shows in the late 90s, modeling before her visa technically allowed, it was something Rosa couldn't look at the same anymore. She had begged for her family to stay together. No one had offered her grace. And she wasn't alone. In Albuquerque, a father of 3 who ran a successful roofing business posted a video from his driveway. I'm not saying she should be deported. I'm saying if her name was Maria and she came from Mexico instead of Slovenia, we wouldn't even know who she was because she wouldn't be here. The clip went viral. What had started as a spark on social media turned into something bigger, a nationwide reckoning. The country was looking in the mirror, and for the first time in a while, not looking away. 2 immigration systems came into focus. One harsh, one forgiving, one public and punishing, one private and protected. Church leaders spoke. Civil rights attorneys did too. Even a few retired immigration judges broke their silence. On NPR, former Judge Lyle Romero admitted, I've had to deport teenagers for technical violations. I cried signing those orders. The law doesn't bend unless you have power. It was getting harder for politicians to duck the conversation. In town halls, constituents were bringing the receipts. At T1 in Toledo, Ohio, a woman asked GOP Congressman Brent Galloway, "Do you support deporting spouses for minor violations?" "It depends," he said carefully. "So if it's Melania Trump, it's a case, but if it's my sister, it's just policy?" She shot back. The room erupted in applause. Local news aired the clip. Then national news did too, across the country. Something shifted. Not riots, not rallies, but vigils. Families stood in silence, holding signs with names, dates, and photos of loved ones removed from the U.S. for infractions that now seemed insignificant compared to what Melania had quietly navigated. In Dallas, outside a courthouse, signs read, "Where's her notice to appear?" One law, one standard. Say her name? How about say her visa type? Jasmine Crockett hadn't orchestrated these moments, but she had become the symbol at the center of them. Her office was flooded with thousands of emails, some angry, some grateful, many simply personal. One read, "You cracked something open. We're not going to shut it again." Cable news tried to pivot, but the story wouldn't die. For every attempt to move the focus back to economic forecasts or global affairs, a new viral video would emerge. Another citizen, another immigrant, saying the same thing. "I followed the rules. Why did they only work for some of us?" Even teenagers joined the dialogue. In Sacramento, a high school senior named Layla stood during a civics class debate. "I was 10 when they took my mom," she said. "She was denied a green card 3 times. If that can happen to us, why does the First Lady get a pass?" Her teacher filmed the moment. Her classmates shared it. CNN aired it 3 times in a single primetime segment. This wasn't Crockett's story anymore. It wasn't even Melania's single quotes. It had become America's. Then came the numbers. Quietly, late on a Sunday night, a poll showed President Trump's approval among independents had dropped 4 points in 48 hours. More alarmingly, trust in the administration's immigration policy plummeted, especially among Latino and Asian American voters. Inside the West Wing, the tone changed. Briefings turned combative. Staffers whispered in hallways. No one made eye contact. Melania still hadn't spoken, but the silence no longer read as composed. It read as avoidance. "She's not running for office," one aide muttered, "but somehow, she's the one." Sinking the ship, in the Roosevelt Room, after a 4th rejected press release draft, Communications Director Carla McNair snapped, "We're playing defense on something we should have buried 6 years ago." No one responded. Then Deputy Chief of Staff Colin Frey said what no one else would, "Because we thought no one would ever have the guts to say it out loud." Crockett had. And now the country wasn't unhearing it. Even Trump was rattled. A campaign stop in Charleston. A reporter shouted, "Do you think your wife's immigration history is fair game?" Trump scowled into the mic. Low blow. Total disrespect. "She's done more for this country than that congresswoman ever will." But the damage was done. He didn't deny the allegations. He didn't defend her visa. He just called the question. Rude. Pundits broke it down frame by frame. Notice, one said, he never claimed she followed the rules. In a diner outside Kansas City, a waitress named Colleen poured coffee as the news played overhead. One regular muttered, "If I got audited, I'd have to show receipts." "Why can't she?" Colleen nodded. "It's not about hate. It's about the rules being the same for everybody." Even Republicans began to splinter. In Utah, Congressman Eli Brogan cautiously distanced himself. "I support the president, but I believe in transparency. If there's nothing to hide, release the documents." He got a call from Trump's inner circle that night. It wasn't friendly, but Brogan wasn't alone. Crockett, meanwhile, stayed calm, deliberate. She wasn't trying to ride a media wave. When asked on a radio show if she had regrets, her answer was simple. "No, I didn't say anything hateful. I said something honest." Then she added, "And if honesty makes people uncomfortable, maybe they should ask why." The clip spread quickly. Barbershops, PTA meetings, gas stations. People weren't just reacting anymore. They were rethinking, not their party, their understanding of fairness. In New Jersey, a state assembly member proposed a bill, full visa transparency for spouses of federal officials. It didn't pass, but it got heard, and people talk that turned out to be the real victory. In Omaha. Someone taped Crockett's quote near a diner's register. No one gets a free pass just because their husband lives in the White House. Someone else scribbled underneath, truth lives longer than power. Melania never gave the interview. Not to Vogue, not to Fox and Friends, not even to the conservative hosts who promised softballs. She stayed silent through the protests, the editorials, the polls, even the censure attempt. And in the end, maybe that was the answer. Because silence, when you have power, isn't grace. It's a choice, a loud public choice. The White House never released Melania's immigration records. The questions were never answered, but the message stayed open, floating, unresolved, and perhaps that's what gave it weight. Because Crockett didn't just speak. She forced the country to confront something it had always known, but never said aloud. Fairness isn't just about rules. It's about who gets forgiven for breaking them. Now, every family facing separation, every denied visa, every child left behind will remember this moment, this silence, and wonder, would the outcome be different? If I had a different last name,